You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun. Hey everybody, it's MyPillow's 20th year anniversary, and over 80 million MyPillows have been sold. Mike Lindell and MyPillow wants to thank each of you and every one of you for giving you the lowest price in history on their MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for $19.98. Regular price is $69.98, and just $10 more for a king size. You will receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products, such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, and so much more. This is a time to try out something other than the amazing products that you've had your eye on. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo Collins, Collins, to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98, or call 800-986-3994. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. You know how I know that? Because I sleep on a MyPillow every night. Go to mypillow.com and use promo code Collins, Collins, or call 800-986-3994 today. Hey, everybody, you know about Legacy Precious Metals. Legacy Precious Metals, you hear from them. We talk once a month. We talk about Legacy Precious Metals, talking about precious metals being part of your portfolio, how they're your navigator. Well, now they're not only navigating in a new way, they're actually giving you a new way to buy gold and silver. In fact, Legacy Precious Metals has developed a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in real gold and silver online. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped to your door. I'm more of a ship to my door kind of person. I enjoy having them with me, but they can do it either way, and you can now do it online. It gives you real access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time, anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar. This puts you in complete control of your money. This platform is free to sign up for. Just visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and is against a volatile stock market. A true diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but a different asset class. This platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Remember, do as I have done. Go to legacypminvestments.com and get started today. And now you've got a new tool to help you along in your investments. Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Tom, glad to have you back with us. You know, it's funny, you and I see each other all over the place, typically in Fox green rooms all over the world, it feels like. A lot has fell off here recently. Let's go back and reset the table a little bit for our listeners on the podcast, because Biden went back to some older policies earlier in the spring. I mean, we're getting ready for the big May influx with the 42 issue and everything else. And intentionally, I believe, mainstream media has just sort of turned away from the immigration issue. Reset it for us over the last few months to say where we're at, what's happening, and really the situation is there now. You had made a comment when we saw each other in the green room that they just moved stuff which I think nobody really realizes, back to the ports of entry. Reset us here for a few minutes on where we're at, and then we'll dig into it.
Yeah, folks need to remember, less than a year ago, we're at 9,000, anywhere between 8,000, as high as 10,000 illegal entries a day. And when they ended Title 42, and I said this 6 months ago, I says, look, they're not going to let the border explode, go beyond 10,000. They're going to think of a way to bring these people in legally, what they claim to be legal. So if you look at the numbers right now, the administration, Mayorkas was on stage the other day, says the border illegal entries are down 70%. And it's just not accurate. What he's doing, he's playing with the numbers. Let me explain. The Border Patrol is still arresting about 3,500 to 4,000 a day illegal. All right. Now let's remember, when Secretary Mayorkas was the secretary back in 14 and 15, Jay Johnson was the secretary, who I respect greatly. We had 1,000 illegal entries a day. He called us all in and said, "What the hell is going on? We got 1,000 illegal entries today." That was a crisis under Jay Johnson when Alejandro Mayorkas was the deputy secretary. Now we're at 3,500, 4,000 a day, 4 times as many. And he says the border's fixed. So it's just, constant misguidance to the American people. The numbers aren't down. Let me explain why. You still got 35 to 4,000 a day coming between the port of entry. They've identified 11 ports of entry to include many airports. So you don't see these people coming in, like Miami Airport. And these ports of entry have a quota to bring 600 a day in through parole program. Illegal aliens apply for parole that bring it through port of entry. They call it the legal pathway. Actually, it's a misuse of the pro policy. I'm not an attorney, but I can read, and I know what the pro policy says. So they're bringing 11 POEs at 600 a day. That's over 6,000 a day. You add that 3,500 and 4,000, 6,000 a day, you're still at 9, 10 grand a day coming in. 9 to 10,000 illegal aliens enter this country every day. But the administration is bringing a big portion through a port of entry, claiming that's a legitimate legal pathway, and it's not. 20 states have filed a lawsuit on that. It's a misuse of the pro policy. The pro policy says clearly, when you pro somebody in the United States, it's by case analysis based on the specifics of that case, and it has to be for significant public benefit. When I was ICE director for a year and a half, I had parole authority. In a year and a half, Tom Homan paroled 3 people in the United States, a total of 3. 2 of them were witnesses in a criminal cartel trial. One was for a humanitarian life and death surgical procedure. So I approved 3. The Biden administration, since Joe Biden's been president, he's paroled almost 600,000 into the United States. And they're calling it a pathway. So they're lying to the American people. It's a shell game.
Now, and Tom, let's hit on that for a second, because I think, again, and I love you and I talking about this, because this is one podcast that we got plenty of time, but we can also dig into it. The parole issue is applying for parole, and then it should be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and then it's supposed to be investigated to see if the legitimacy of the claim to come on the parole issue, and then a decision is made, and then you're let in. What we're seeing now is just apply, we'll let you in, and we'll figure it out later.
What they're saying is, you know what, we're going to let you continue to make a fraudulent claim to asylum. We'll parole you in, catch and release, and when you don't win your case, we won't remove you because we won't be able to find you. People need to understand, on top of all this, what the secretary isn't saying, which your listeners need to understand. If you look at immigration court data on asylees, people that claim asylum at the border, what happens to them? Nearly 9 out of 10 people that claim asylum at our borders never get relief from U.S. courts because they simply don't qualify or they don't show up in court. It's 87.6, I think the last number I saw. So nearly 9 out of 10 don't qualify. The administration knows this, but they're letting thousands in a day, knowing, based on 10 years of data, 9 out of 10 don't qualify. But they also know the reason they're letting them in and they're not detaining them, because arriving alien by statute shall be detained. That's the wording of the statute. Shall be detained. So rather than detaining these people in an ICE facility, they're releasing them. And here's why they're releasing them, Doug, because not something else they won't talk about. I already said immigration court data shows 9 out of 10 will not get relief from U.S. courts because they simply don't qualify. The Homeland Security Life Cycle Report is the Secretary Mayorkas' very own report. What does that say? That says if you lose your immigration court case and you're in the ICE detention facility, you're removed 99.7% of the time. If you're not in detention, you leave 6% of the time. The administration knows this. That's why there's thousands of empty ICE beds not being utilized, already paid for, by the way, at about $117 a night. Already paid for. Thousands of beds sit empty while they're putting people in hotel rooms at $300 to $500 a night, because they know 90% lose their case. And if they're not in detention, they won't leave. This is that not only is the administration open the border up and letting thousands in every day, which they know don't qualify for any sort of relief, they're making a situation where ICE won't be able to find them and arrest them and deport them.
Well, let's break off of that just a little bit, because you just made an interesting point about the cities and everything and putting them in hotels. The mayor of New York, I know well, you're upper New York, not down south in New York City, but it said they can't handle it anymore. They've had all they can take. They can't handle anymore. It just, to me, it flies in the front of, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas on what those little towns are facing down there. But think about that. When you're saying ICE beds are open, and he's saying he's got nowhere to put them, that's just a lot. At least some of them, if he's that desperate, he could go to the ICE beds.
There, I think there's last time I looked, there about 22,000 in custody. But under the Trump administration, we had over 55,000 in custody. There are ICE beds available. An average ICE bed's $117 a night. And here's the difference. For $117 a night, you get 24/7 medical care. There's doctors on staff, nurses on staff, pharmacists on staff. You got attorney-client visitation available. You got recreation. You got 3 squares a day, a full medical and dental evaluation. We have dentists on staff. But instead, they'd rather put them in a hotel room at $500 a night, and they get none of this care. So
Right.
the administration says that they're more humane than the past administration. These people deserve better treatment. Then the best treatment they could have is in an ICE detention facility where they get 24/7 medical treatment, because a lot of these people have medical issues and they arrive here. So no, this is all about letting as many people that can into the United States through what they call legal pathway, which they will lose. Remember, 20 states filed a lawsuit against this. I just wish it hurry up and get to court and they stop this. By the time it gets to court and they order stay in this thing, we're going to have several million people in the United States. We've already had over 5 million encounters on our border since Joe Biden took the White House, which is historic numbers by far. And look, you need to understand, these people are never leaving. Right? Because we're probably right around 20 million illegal aliens in the country. Even if we take the White House back and take the Senate back, and President Trump's promising the historic deportation operation, it's virtually impossible to find, arrest, or remove 20 million. I mean, we'll do the best we can, but people need to understand this administration is making it so these people won't be removed. And what angers me more than anything, the left keeps saying that these people have a right to due process. They have a right to see a judge. Okay, I agree with you. If they claim asylum, they got a right to see a judge. However, due process doesn't mean squat if you don't execute the final order of the judge. So the 90% that will lose, they're going nowhere, even if they have an order of deportation. Why? Because Secretary Mayorkas has told ICE this, and you know this. Being in the country illegally on its own isn't enough for ICE to look for him and arrest him. So he's already said they can go ahead and lose their case. As long as they don't commit another serious crime, no one's looking for them.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to something also that's always been a real rub, I think with the communities, with worker communities and everything else is, the part that's keeping them here. And I want to get back to some of my Orcus's statements from the other day at the Aspen Institute. But one of the things is the job and the underground economy that is created here. We saw this in Georgia. We've seen it in other places. I mean, they're getting jobs. They're working. There is an underground economy. Employers are employing them. Is there a way? And this sort of, when you said that, it just made me think about this. Because this is some of the, and we don't talk about this, this is some of the biggest kickback you get when you want to start deporting, you want to start enforcing anything from a verification process or anything else. But isn't that part of the problem too, is the simple fact that you're only supposed to hire legal aliens or legal residents or citizens of this United States in your jobs. But yet we're not doing it. We're not enforcing.
You're exactly right. Two of the biggest magnets, two of the biggest enticements for people to come to this country, the biggest one is employment. If Congress was to pass E-Verify and these people know they can't get a job, many of them wouldn't come, put themselves in harm's way. And the other thing is, birthright citizenship. If you and your husband are illegally in the United States and you have a child in the United States as a U.S. citizen, I can tell you, and I'm not saying this from a hateful perspective, but this is just a fact. When I was ICE director, we went and did a family operation where all these families came across. I saw a judge, and judge ordered them removed, 90% of them. Like I said, 9 out of 10. Jay Johnson actually gave us permission to locate these families and make sure they left as ordered by a federal judge. When we went and did that operation, 44% of every family unit we found already had a U.S. citizen child or was pregnant with a U.S. citizen child. It's a big driver, because once you get a U.S. citizen child, people say, well, aliens don't go on welfare. They don't take all these social services. The minute they have a U.S. citizen child, they're eligible for everything. So it's one of the big enticements.
Yeah, Tom, let me jump in right there, because this is something this I think talked about a lot, talking points on both sides. Explain what they're eligible for at that point. Is the child eligible, or does the family get the benefit as well?
The child's eligible, but in some states like New York and California, the parents are eligible too. Some states it's just the child. But the mere fact, but on top of the benefits, Doug, you're talking about that child in petition for other alien relatives. Since right now, Alejandro Mayorkas just announced the latest legal pathway, which is, again, is illegal, where he's going to parole thousands of people in for what he calls family reunification, which means if there's somebody in the world that has a relative here as a U.S. citizen, he's going to reunite that family rather than standing in line and getting a green card when their time's up. He's just going to parole 1,000 men a day. And here's the problem. Congress has set the number of how many green cards be issued a year. Once again, the Biden administration is blowing past Congress. They don't care what the law says. They're making their own. They're making their own decision. It's like Secretary Mayorkas has all of a sudden become the legislative branch, not the executive branch. Everything he's doing, whether it's a pro policy, whether it's the president tried a moratorium on deportation, they're just kicking Congress aside. So we don't care what you say. We don't care what laws you pass. We don't care what laws were signed by a president. We're going to do what we want to do. And people can attack the Trump administration, who I work for, as much as you want. We didn't do this. When Congress failed to do some certain things, President Trump issued executive orders. This president isn't even issuing executive orders. Secretary Mayorkas is taking the law in a perverted way, taking that law and twisting it upside down and using it to his benefit, which he will lose in court. But until then, millions of more illegal aliens are coming to the United States. And here's the kicker. They say they're the most humane administration in the history of this country, much more humane than Trump administration, which is totally true, which is totally untrue. Let me explain why. Since Joe Biden's been president, over 1,700 migrants have died in U.S. soil coming to this country. When you promise the most vulnerable people in the world, you can come here, you won't be detained, you'll be released, and even when you lose your case, no one's looking to remove you. They're going to put themselves in harm's way. They're going to put themselves in the hands of criminal cartels and come to this country. 1,700 migrants have died in U.S. soil, a record by far. Over 100,000 Americans have died from fentanyl coming across the open border, a record by far. The trafficking of women and children, the sex trafficking of children, all-time high. The amount of money the cartels are making in billions of dollars, all-time high. I mean, the number of known suspected terrorists arrested coming across the border, all-time high. This administration isn't humane. They're killing people at record numbers, both migrants and U.S. citizens.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the part that, again, is not understood. And then, a topic, and we'll get to it here in a minute, is the strain it's putting on our ICE and our Border Patrol agents and everything else. A quick question, a curious comment. I was watching Mayorkas the other day. Again, he goes off on his thing. We determined that we were not going to call them illegal aliens, my first acting job, and that kind of crap. But he also said something that was like 900 pounds. I can't remember the exact term, but it was an outrageous amount of fentanyl and others being stopped at comes, and here's the way he worded it. He said, comes through our port of entries.
It's not true. Let me explain it real quick.
Yeah, talk about that, because most of it's, the stuff that's getting to the streets, if you're catching it at the port of entry, that means it wouldn't be flooding our streets. It's flooding our streets.
It's the guy, if his lips are moving, he's lying. I mean, I know politicians, they stretch the truth sometimes, but I've never seen an administration out lie. Bottom line is most of the drugs are seized at the port of entry. And why is that? Because every vehicle stopped. Everybody's spoken to it. And depending on the questions, your response to the question, they may decide to secondary and search that vehicle or not. Also, there's a CBP targeting system. I can't tell you what's in it. It's law enforcement sensitive. When they put the license plate number in that computer, that bounces off against all these intelligence databases. That database may come back and tell the officer, you know what? This may be one you want a secondary and take a closer look at. So they got great systems. So yeah, most of the narcotics are seized at a port of entry because every vehicle stopped. But we don't know what's happening between the port of entries because they're getting away. So most of the drugs, if you look at the amount of drugs seized by the Border Patrol and the Coast Guard, which is maritime, not at a port of entry, it far beats any seizure by a port of entry.
Right.
But most of the drugs come between the port of entries. If you're a criminal cartel and you want to move drugs in the United States, you're going to use the route of least resistance. Not a port of entry where every vehicle is going to be stopped and you're going to be questioned. You're going to go between the port of entry because the Border Patrol is so overwhelmed with this humanitarian crisis, you're going to get away.
Yep. Well, and to say that with a straight face was just, and nobody really questioned it back, was just amazing to me. Speaking of which, though, and I know this is a part, and as we get into this situation a little bit further, the agents, and I know, are close to your heart, and especially the ICE agents, and especially the Border Patrol agents. How is it for them right now? I mean, they've just got to be at a point right now to where it's just, again, going through the motions. I hate to say it, but I mean, they're doing the best they can, but they're being told to not enforce the law, basically.
The morale is non-existent in Border Patrol and ICE. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds. I started my career as a Border Patrol agent. Never been more proud to wear that uniform than I was back in. I'm dating myself back in 1983 to 90. But I've talked to hundreds of these guys. I made a dozen trips to the border this past year, and the morale is non-existent. They feel like they've been abandoned by the president. They feel like they've been abandoned by the Secretary of Homeland Security, and they have been. They're not able to do their jobs. Look, they go strap a gun to their hip every day and to change diapers, make baby formula, make airport runs. They process people to release them in the United States. Border Patrol, they said they feel more like a tourist agency than they do a federal law enforcement agency. And they know that while they're overrun and up to 70%, Doug, 70% of some sectors, up to 70% of agents are pulled off the line to process this humanitarian crisis. And they know while they're sitting in that processing center, processing this family who they know don't have the right to be here, and they know will lose their asylum case, there's dope crossing where the borders open. There's children being trafficked where the borders open. They know while they're sitting in that facility processing people that don't deserve to be in this country, drugs, terrorists, and trafficking with children and women are happening because they're not on the line. They're in the facility.
Exactly. And, and I'm going to say an interesting thing here, because right now the customs and folks and border stuff have put out a problem that they're having trouble processing passports, by the way. And I thought this was rather interesting. And when I dug into it a little bit, what my sources behind the scenes were telling me is because they're losing people that need to be put on the border to process what you're talking about, and that this causing this backup. So even if you don't think that drugs affect you, even if you don't think the illegal aliens affect you, for those of you who are calling, griping about the 12 to 13, 14, 15 weeks for getting a passport back, this crisis on the border is affecting you.
Absolutely. Not just for applications at the port. The 11 port of entries identified to you, including some airports. Legal trade and travel has been pushed back, way back. I mean, a big part of the Miami airport, those inspectors that check people coming into the country. If you go on vacation, you check back through the customs, you're waiting in line a hell of a lot longer because a lot of that staff's been pulled to do this parole processing. The San Ysidro port of entry, the legal trade, the trucks are backed up for miles because a lot of the staff's been pulled dealing with this parole policy. So it's affecting not only those who are trying to come in the country the right way and pushing their applications back, it's making it difficult for legal travel and trade in and out of the United States.
Yeah, it really is. And I think this is the part that is frustrating to many Americans, because they're just seeing this. And and Tom, I think it's not an overstatement to say this is fun. And you made a statement earlier that there's no way to deport all this. I made a statement years ago that said we just don't have enough Greyhound buses to put everybody back on a bus and send them back. It's because of issues you talked about. But is it hyperbole to say that the last 5 to 6 years in particular, or if you want to go back to the Obama administration even a little bit, have fundamentally changed the shape of America?
Yes, and it's going to get worse. Look, we already have over 5 million encounters, and that's what we know about. We don't know about the gotaways, how many unknown gotaways. By the time Joe Biden finishes his first term in office, we'll have probably about 12 million that came to our border. And look, I've said this before, and people say, why would they do this? Well, there's a thought that some of the Democratic Party thinks that these people can be Democratic voters in the future. Maybe. I said, but here's the one that's going to happen sooner. When Joe Biden signed 90 executive orders overturning everything we did in the Trump administration, he also overturned the Trump census rule, which means millions of these people will be counted in the next census in sanctuary cities, which means what, Doug? It means probably more seats in House for the Dems based on the census in these sanctuary cities. So this is about selling this nation out for what they see as a future political benefit.
Yeah. Got it. Before you go, though, we've started something I ask a lot of our guests to participate in. And it's a little bit fun. It's not just immigration, but it's as I've gotten older. Next month, I turn 57. And I found this from something I had years ago when I was pastoring. And it said, I've learned that. And it's basically as you learn, you mature, you grow up. And it's sayings that I've learned that. And I'm going to read one. And what I'd love for you to do, and what I've done a couple times, is give me your impression of this, that, you know, because you've had a lot of history, a life history, and we've talked about this. One of those things that I said that I have learned that, and these were on a thing, is credentials on a wall do not make you a decent human being.
I agree with that.
Have you seen that?
Oh, no, I agree with that.
People think they point to their wall and they say, here's my credentials because I must be good.
You know what? As long as you don't forget where you came from. One thing I've learned through my career is don't forget where you came from. You know, I was the first ice director who actually came up through the ranks. I started as a GS5 board patrol. I climbed the ladder, hit every rung, never missed a rung. I ice director actually came up through the ranks. So 20,000 men and women that served under me. I didn't ask them to do anything I didn't do myself. And our morale was at an all-time high. But one thing my dad taught me is never forget where you come from. And I don't care if you're GS5, you're a senior executive service, everybody matters.
All right, folks, as you just heard there, Tom is one of those that just gives it to you straight. I mean, his life experience there is remember where you come from. I've always liked to say it, put it in my own words, is bloom where you're planted. And then Tom is one of those that has. But he also comes and he brings truth about what's going on, and he cuts through the bull that is being said from Department of Homeland Security right now. Folks, I don't wish anybody unwell, but I do have a problem with Secretary Mayorkas and his constant lies. And it is lies. It's not bending of facts. It's not manipulating. It is just lies about what's going on at the border. How do I know? Because I have experts like Tom Homans, who comes on the Doug Collins podcast to let us know the truth about what's going on. So, folks, if you're a praying person, do this. Pray for those Border Patrol agents, those ICE agents. They're under a tough situation right now that they're trying to get through every day. They signed up for something, and this is not what they signed up for. Many of them have been doing it so long, there's not really a way for them to leave and go do something else. They're just waiting now that they can eventually give for their family and retire. But under this circumstances, our nation's being changed, our culture is being changed. And look, immigration in our country has made our country wonderful. But it's legal immigration, not just walking across the border, not flouting our laws, not becoming assimilated into our culture. This is what we have to deal with. So, folks, this is why we have these guests like Tom Homans on, so that you can get the real truth here on the Doug Collins podcast. We'll see you next time.